Okay, welcome everybody. Thanks for sticking around after lunch. It's good to see that we've still got a good crowd, and I hope there's still a lot of people out on the web watching. I hope everybody got their post-lunch nap out of the way during Jay's session. I know I did. No, I'm kidding, Jay. Yours was great. I'm kidding. It was very good. Okay, well, let's jump right in. Maybe. There we go. Okay. These are the topics that I'm going to be talking about today. I definitely want to acknowledge the efforts of my fellow study team members. We had over a dozen of us that have been working over the last 3 months representing all the human spaceflight centers as well as most of the major technical disciplines, including the crew office. And so they contributed very much to these concepts that I'm going to be showing today. But we have a lot more work to do, obviously, and to help us with that, it's already been announced that the commercial crew, the lead center for commercial crew is going to be at the Kennedy Space Center, and the lead for the center planning office at KSC is Ed Mango. So Ed, if you're out there, there he is. For those of you on the web, it's a good-looking guy over here. He's leading those efforts at KSC to help flesh out the next level of detail for the commercial crew activity. And so I want to say, obviously, that what we're going to present today shows a significant amount of effort, but we still have a long way to go. We've incorporated several touch points with industry into our strategy. And so we, just like everyone else and that you've been hearing many, many times today, we definitely want to hear from you as we go forward. And we're going to refine these concepts, and that's where that last box is. We're definitely going to be changing things as we go forward. We have the RFI that we also submitted on Friday, as well as the one-on-ones tomorrow. We hope to have additional RFIs and, like I said, additional touch points with industry, academia, and other partners and other stakeholders to make sure that we get this right as we refine our strategy going forward. Okay, in order to start our planning, we thought it was helpful for us to define and agree on what our future state was going to be. And that's where you get the graphic on your right-hand side. You can see that the end state, where we hope to get to, is routine space access for humans, where you can see we've integrated it with airplane operations. You've got the space station out on the side because that's our near-term destination. And we really want our vision for commercial human spaceflight to be a robust, vibrant, profit-making enterprise with a wide range of users. In the near term, NASA hopes to be a reliable customer for these services for U.S. and U.S. designated astronauts to and from the International Space Station. And then it is hoped that these activities will stimulate the development of additional markets and a new space industry for us. And there's going to be lots of benefits associated if we're successful. It's going to strengthen the ISS program. It's going to allow NASA to really focus on Beyond LEO, which is really our core mission. It's going to contribute to the national economy, help the U.S. industrial base, enable world peace. I don't know, maybe that last one's a little stretch, sorry. It's a little stretch, sorry. But we do believe the commercial crew initiative to be the next major step in making this vision happen. We have been talking about routine access for humans to space for decades, and I believe that this is the next major step for us in that direction. There we go. Okay, so the objectives of this program. For the commercial crew initiative, we want to facilitate the development of U.S. commercial crew transportation with the goal of safe, reliable, and cost-effective transportation to and from LEO and the International Space Station. You're going to hear that mantra over and over again during my pitch and throughout as we go forward with commercial crew: safe, reliable, and cost-effective. Those are the key ingredients. And once this capability is matured, we hope to be able to purchase seats for this service for government and other users to meet our ISS crew transportation needs. So in order to meet this objective and these goals, we're going to be following an innovative way of doing business with U.S. aerospace industry. We hope to have a development and demonstration phase followed by a services phase. For the development demonstration phase, we very much want to use a public-private partnership We want to engage with the commercial sector to bring about these capabilities. And to do that, the partnerships are going to feature these items that you see here. Competition, which is a key ingredient. We definitely want competition to be going forward through pre-negotiated milestone-based agreements that will hopefully support multiple systems. There's a competition again. We're going to support a range of higher and lower programmatic risk systems. We'd like to get the innovation associated with the entrepreneurial sector, as well as some of the systems that are more steeped in heritage. We'd like to get the best of both of those worlds, so we're going to be funding a variety of those concepts so that we can get the best. Again, some amount of industry investment capital is going to be required for any agreement, any relationship that we have. This is the skin in the game feature that you've heard so much about. We believe it's a critically important facet of our strategy going forward, so that will be a key ingredient. We have to clearly and promptly state our NASA safety requirements and ensure that they're going to be met. We've spent probably the most amount of time on defining what our safety requirements are, what our process for ensuring that they're going to be met, and again, always at the end of the day, NASA is going to be verifying that these requirements are going to be met at the end. And then those are the development phase aspects. We hope that will lead to the competitive selection of, ideally, more than one commercial provider through firm fixed price contracts. So you can see that this approach is very analogous to the COTS CRS model, COTS standing for Commercial Orbital Transportation Services, that we use for cargo, that then led to the Cargo Resupply Contract, or CRS contract. And so this model does use that as an analogy. And there is definitely, we have to acknowledge that there is some risk to this innovative approach, and there is no guarantee for success associated with, as there is no guarantee of success for any NASA mission. But we do hope that this Commercial Crew Initiative holds the promise of enabling routine, safe, reliable, cost-effective access to space going forward. Okay, got to hit it. No, I went too far, sorry. Okay, so the framework that we put together, we wanted it to be designed to achieve both the goals of safe transport for our U.S. and U.S. designated astronauts to the International Space Station, but also support the development of non-NASA markets for commercial human space transportation. Now, we know that there are other customers for human space transportation services. That is a historical fact. Since 1978, the United States and Russia have transported almost 100 astronauts from foreign countries to space. That averages about to 3 a year. In addition, since 2001, 8 individuals have flown on Soyuz as spaceflight participants, including 1 reflight, and that averages out to about 1 per year. And that's at a time when the availability of Soyuz seats has been severely constrained. In addition, Bigelow Aerospace has reportedly spent about $180 million on their inflatable modules, which, if successful, would put another destination in LEO for these services. Bigelow Aerospace has estimated that there is demand for 6 flights per year initially, and then ramping up after that. So a very robust market demand estimated there. On the supply side, as many of you are probably aware, earlier this year we awarded 5 Space Act awards for the CCDEV, or Commercial Crew Development Program. This was using the ARPA money. I forget what that acronym stands for. Got too many. The stimulus money. And so those were awarded in February. NASA received over 30 proposals for activities associated with that, and we awarded 5 Space Act awards. So that shows that there is robust interest on the part of the U.S. aerospace industry to supply these systems. But probably the most important development for enabling these services was the decision recently by the part of the administration to extend the life of the ISS, likely to 2020 or beyond. For the first time in history, we have a reliable, sustainable market for human space transportation services. So that was the key, I believe, to making this program really feasible at this time. And that's why we've put it together this way. So I did spend a lot of time on that. So we can say, again, that there are other customers for this service, but we cannot positively say that there are sufficient customers to enable multiple viable commercial providers. And that's what we're going to be exploring on this program. But what we can say is that by combining NASA's near-term needs for ISS crew transportation with the potential for other customers, that we have the opportunity now, as no time better in history, to be at the forefront of a new industry and enabling routine space access to space. And that's why we're so excited about this program. Okay, so how do we make that happen more, I guess, more tactically? I've been talking about strategic things. I think I've got to hit this button twice to get it to go. Okay, here we go. The key attributes of our strategy. How are we going to make this happen? We used a lot of industry feedback that we've received over the years. We incorporated the lessons learned from our COTS program and our CRS activities and the CCDEV activities. So we brought all of that knowledge to bear, all of that experience. We actually did have now real experience. It wasn't hypothetical about what things actually did work with a partnership with commercial industry for these types of things, what things didn't work so well, and we were able to incorporate those and establish some key attributes for our strategy going forward. And you can see them listed here. We definitely want performance-based milestone payments. We think this is very important. It encourages new and efficient vehicle designs. It shifts some of the risk associated away from the government. We only have to pay for those milestones that get met. If the milestones don't get met, we're not on the hook for paying, and then future milestones are always based on the successful execution of those by the private sector. Fixed government investment. This is key. This permits NASA, obviously, to support multiple systems because we have a fixed investment. We can hopefully spread that money around. But most importantly, this provides a sort of a corporate development mindset to bear on bringing these new systems to fruition. And we think that that is critically important. So for the first time, we're really going to be making trades between performance and cost effectiveness, and we think that is what is a critical aspect for bringing a commercial system that has cost effective prices associated with it and can gather other customers. In order to do that, we feel like this corporate development mindset is very, very important. And to get that, you need a fixed government investment. We feel like, again, very important. We want industry financial investment. Again, that expands our overall pool of funds, enables us to fund multiple systems. It very much encourages our partners to stay in the game. The only way they're going to recoup that money that they have put forward is through the successful selling of services, both to NASA and potentially to other customers, to get their return on investment. So it very much incentivizes them to perform and to stay in the game, which is all the things that we want. It also supports them getting other customers. And you can see that these attributes, they kind of feed together. They're very much synergistic. One of them sort of supports the other, and that feeds back into another one. So these all sort of come together, and we'd like to get a strategy that features all of these attributes. We want only for the government to have very limited intellectual property. We'd like the contractors or the commercial providers to be able to retain as much of those as possible, so that they can have uninhibited commercial sale or future application of their capabilities. We also believe that this facilitates industry investment. If the commercial providers own their products, again, they won't probably be more willing to contribute their own funds, or not their own funds, or funds that they can get through marketplace as well. We'd like to only specify high-level objectives. These are mostly performance objectives. This is not safety, and I'm going to go into the safety aspects in a little bit. But at a performance level, we know we want safe, reliable space transportation to and from the International Space Station. That's the very highest level goal that we want to mandate, and we'd like to stay as high level as possible to encourage the private sector to come forward with innovative designs, ones that can meet our needs as well as other customer needs and potentially close their business case. That's why this is so important. Again, as you can see, it sort of all ties together, allowing creative solutions. Relief from the requirement of improved government accounting system. Again, we'd like a level playing field. We'd like to get these innovative entrepreneurial ideas as well as the ones that are more steeped in heritage so that we can go forward. And in order to do that, might not necessarily require an approved accounting system, which requires a lot of overhead, a lot of red tape. We'd like to get the innovative ideas. And then the biggest one, well, I don't know about the biggest one. These are not prioritized. Competition. Multiple industry providers are going to be key during this development phase so that we are not dependent on a sole provider. In case one drops out, we'll have others that we can rely on. This is going to be very difficult. It's very likely, or it's possible, that somebody's going to drop out. It's going to be difficult to maintain all of our milestones on time. Test objectives, we're probably going to, there's going to be some test failures because we're going to have a lot of tests. We're going to learn from those. So these are sort of expected things that go forward, but when we get to the point where a commercial provider is not performing, we'd like to be the ability to move forward and have others in the mix. It will also lead to lower prices, more efficiency, and we think all in all a very good thing. So the study team reviewed all types of mechanisms available at NASA's disposal to achieving these kinds of attributes. And we're still fine-tuning our acquisition strategy or our investment strategy, but we very much like NASA's other transactional authority. We think that those types of arrangements, Space Act agreements, provide for the best fit for these kinds of attributes, but we're also exploring sort of the more innovative fixed-price relationships associated with that. So I've got another slide that shows our acquisition strategy or investment strategy, but we can say, even going forward this far in the planning, that the traditional cost-plus type relationships do not seem to be consistent with this approach and are not being considered for the development phase going forward. Here we go. Oh, skipped it again. Okay. So now comes the hard part, in my opinion, which is ensuring that these systems are going to be safe and reliable. And this is a critical component of this program. Like I said before, this is probably something that the study team spent the most amount of time on. Once we determined some of the aspects of the program that I've shown previously, we said, okay, well, how are we going to make sure that we can do this in a reliable, safe manner? Because it is very much a different way of doing business for NASA and for the aerospace industry. So we developed this. This was an approach that was actually preceded the study team activity. We started on this late last year, calendar year. So we've been working on this for a number of months with multiple centers feeding in, a lot of lessons learned from previous activities. But before I get into this chart, we did notice right off the get-go that the definition of terms need a little bit of specificity, because even at NASA, we use the terms insight and oversight interchangeably, and there's not a lot of clarity on those terms. So for the purposes of commercial crew and the purposes of my pitch today, insight refers to discerning the true nature of the system. It has to do with penetrating the vehicle design and understanding its performance and capabilities. That's what insight is about. Oversight has to do with government approval of the vehicle design and direction to the commercial provider. So those are two very different things, but both are critically important in determining whether these commercial systems are safe and reliable for NASA personnel to fly on. In previous human spaceflight programs, the government had total oversight responsibility, meaning NASA made all the major decisions associated with the design, the development, testing, production. All that was NASA's. And for the commercial crew program, we are going to be going forward with a partnership, again, with us and the commercial provider. So the key first aspect right off the bat is there is going to be a stronger reliance on the part of the commercial providers for making their systems safe. NASA will, though, have in-depth insight into those vehicle designs, predominantly through co-locating NASA personnel on site with the contractor so that we can see the real-time test data as it comes through. We can see the analysis as it's coming through. And again, real time. We're not waiting for a milestone where we receive a whole bunch of contract deliverables and we review those deliverables. The strategy going forward and a key aspect of our insight approach is having NASA personnel on the floor with the commercial providers, again, seeing the raw data, seeing the test data, knowing more precisely and more accurately where they are with their design and how close they are to meeting those requirements or not meeting those requirements. So that was a key aspect that we felt was important going forward. The other aspect is making sure that we have our requirements and standards well defined and that we're applying those to the commercial providers consistently. We have just released our, I'll get into this a little bit more in a second, on our requirements for comment from industry, but those documents, those standards, those requirements are going to be important. We're going to tailor those to make sure that the commercial provider knows which ones they're responsible for and which ones we're responsible for. But at the end of the day, NASA is always responsible for verifying that they meet these standards and requirements. So we're not offloading that. Again, at the end of the day, NASA is responsible for verifying that these requirements are going to be met. So in order to do this, we are going to have Insight Oversight teams. We're going to try and stay flexible, or at least the idea is to be flexible with those teams going forward. It's going to be dependent on the vehicle design. Some vehicle designs have sort of more risky features than others. So for those, we may have a bigger Insight team. One commercial provider may be using a launch vehicle with a lot of flight heritage and a lot of history of successful flights, so you might not need as many Insight personnel as you would need for somebody with a brand new launch vehicle, for example. So we're also going to be using experience for what subsystems have failed mostly in the past. If you look at our historical failures, a lot of them have happened in propulsion, so we'll probably beef up our propulsion team. But again, we're going to be sort of right-sizing it for the particular system and the particular commercial provider. We believe that this approach, while it is different in the past, will result in a more efficient, more penetrating, and more insight so that we can get a reliable system at the end of the day. And also, I should say, as we've been socializing this within NASA, a lot of people have said, well, that's not new. We've kind of used aspects of that on this program or that program, and that's very true. We did kind of borrow the best ideas from some of NASA's other high-value launch vehicle and payload programs in the past, and we've incorporated that. So the very first part of defining this is we went through and surveyed a lot of our previous both human and non-human spaceflight programs to see how they did this Insight Oversight approach. And again, we took those and combined them in a way that we think is going to be a very effective process going forward. Okay, I'm sort of right on time. Okay. In terms of the human spaceflight certification, over the years, NASA and the aerospace community, we've developed an outstanding complement of standards, of rules and processes to enable safe human spaceflight. These are designed to enhance vehicle reliability, improve mission success, and maximize crew safety. And for the commercial crew program, our requirements are going to be in this Commercial Human Rating Plan, which we have affectionately termed the CHIRP. Nobody likes that acronym, but it is stuck. We can't seem to shake it. So that is the plan that we let out in an RFI last Friday. Anybody should be able to access this. The original RFI said 3 pages, but you have 20 pages. We want 20 pages of response, up to 20 pages. If you have that kind of feedback, we definitely want to hear that, because we've been developing these sort of only on the NASA side. This is our first opportunity to get industry input on these requirements, and we definitely want to hear what you have to say. We started with NASA's standard, which is this 87052B, for those of you who are familiar with the NASA Human Rating Standards. These are requirements that NASA imposes on government-developed vehicles and spacecraft. So obviously it was not appropriate for us to just apply 8705 to the commercial providers. So the biggest step we had to do in tailoring this was determining which one of these are going to stay with NASA and which one of these are going to be on the responsibility of the commercial provider. And we have done that. There's a table in the CHIRP that shows who has responsibility for which requirements. In addition, we took the standards and we have binned those into mandatory standards that you cannot provide an alternative, or you cannot not meet. You have to meet these. There's another set which people or commercial providers can provide alternative standards, and NASA will review those to ensure they meet or exceed the standard that we have put forward. And then there's a third, which are sort of the golden rules, things that we have learned over the years that we recommend, but we're not going to require them to necessarily incorporate. So this tailoring, we believe, again, is going to maximize safety and reliability while not overly burdening the commercial providers with unnecessary requirements that significantly and sometimes unnecessarily increase the scope and size of the government team and run up the development costs. What we want to ensure is that we're only applying safety requirements here, not performance requirements. That's where you can get into a very difficult game of sometimes making changes a lot of times. That was one of the things that we found on some, not all, some of our previous spaceflight programs where he had sort of a continuous oversight model, where we were continually providing change and new direction to the contractor. We get into this mode where we're getting changes on top of changes, and it gets really hard to figure out exactly where you are. We wanted to minimize that, so we have discrete oversight times when we can provide direction to the commercial provider. But the insight will be continuous, mostly through the NASA personnel on the factory floor, getting back to the previous slide. Okay, so the CHIRP is the main document. I hope you guys can read that. That's the center document. Also, we are going to plan to release the ISS interface requirements document. The first phase of that was out for COTS cargo. We're going to be updating that for crew and releasing that later this summer under an RFI. That's the plan, as well as the service requirements document. These are the things that the ISS program needs in order to be successful. The plan is to let those two, we're currently working on those two documents. Hopefully they will be ready later this summer, and we'll send those out in an RFI for comment. The commercial provider is going to need all three of these documents in order to achieve their human spaceflight certification. Because we are going to be certifying these vehicles for the ISS mission. If they go to some other place, that's going to require some other certification. As part of this program, we are defining the human spaceflight certification for the ISS mission for NASA personnel. And in order for commercial providers to fly NASA personnel, they have to meet NASA human spaceflight certification. NASA is not going to allow any of our personnel, U.S. astronauts or U.S. designated astronauts, to fly on commercial provider systems until they have received their NASA human spaceflight certification. Oh, and also the service requirements document, we will have this for the development phase, and then it is planned that that will be transitioned to the actual requirements document for the services phase, where we're actually purchasing seats. So that will be a key document and will stay with us going forward. Okay, so what is this service requirements document and the ISS programmatic requirements? Those will be captured in this SRD, which I mentioned to you. And again, we've been able to use lessons learned from past programs in developing this. Mostly the services that we provided, that are provided by Soyuz, that has provided us with a key set of implementation ideas and requirements, I guess you could say, as well as lessons learned from prior NASA programs. Constellation program, a lot of lessons learned associated with that. The orbital space plane and even X-38 and some of those previous things. We have tapped into that expertise to figure out what exactly we need for a commercial ISS, for a commercial provider to provide ISS crew transportation services, as well as, of course, COTS, the CRS, and the CC-DEV models. Again, having real experience with this kind of model has proved to be invaluable in laying the groundwork for this commercial crew program. That does not mean we're going to follow exactly the way we did for cargo. This is different, and we are going to be aware of those differences. We're going to be incorporating the things that may not have worked as well and the things that worked really, really well in coming up with these processes and requirements. So the key program requirements that we've got at this time, and I have to say, just like everything that I presented, this is subject to change. I think we said that about 52 times and probably 52 more to go. But the ISS mission is evolving. These requirements may change based on the needs of the ISS program, as well as NASA's exploration goals. That may require some change to these. But these are the top-level lists that we've got right now. Safe transit for up to 4 ISS crew members per flight, at least 2 flights per year, targeted availability of 2015. We realize this is very aggressive. We currently have contracts for Soyuz purchases right up until that point. We also have the Iran, I'll never get that acronym, INCSNA, is for those of you who are familiar with that. I think that goes till right up until the end of 2015. So this is the targeted availability date for these services, which when NASA would like to have those. Going to have safe abort and crew recovery for all phases of the launch and asset, including pad escape. Obviously, you're going to have to meet ISS visiting vehicle requirements, as well as the physical and environmental interface definitions, because we're going to actually be docking these things or berthing these things, these spacecraft, to the ISS, so they've got to be able to interface successfully. And I have to have a line in here about the Orion Emergency Rescue Vehicle. We're obviously, just like everybody else, still incorporating that into our program planning, and so we're currently evaluating how that is going to fit into our overall requirements. Have not determined that yet. Okay, the concept of operations that we have laid out, this is mostly for the services phase, so let me mention that. We're trying to keep it as a high level as possible and allowing the commercial providers the maximum flexibility to design their own solutions that meet our needs as well as close their business case. So for example, NASA is not going to be specifying what the launch or landing site will be for the commercial providers, or the landing mode, water versus land. That is going to be up to the commercial providers as long as it meets our requirements for safe, reliable, and cost-effective transportation for our U.S. astronauts. I think I've said that the required 5 times. The commercial providers generally going to be responsible for all phases of the mission. So you can see the overall management and integration arrow, as well as each one of the individual phases of the program, or major phases, production all the way through recovery. The commercial providers, again, responsible for this. They're also going to be responsible for all facilities and infrastructure. However, if the government, and particularly NASA, has a test stand or some other training facility or some piece of equipment that a commercial provider may need, we are definitely open to providing those on a reimbursable basis. We want to make sure that we have a level playing field, that we don't require the commercial providers to all use a system that may fit their business case and their system, and it may not fit others. So we have to be very careful about maintaining a level playing field. But we definitely are open and anxious to provide those that make sense on a reimbursable basis. Commercial providers responsible for this certification of flight readiness. For those of you in the business know about the COFA process. We're going to have a COFA review. We probably will not have a DD-250 because we're not actually taking ownership of any hardware. Again, we're not buying missions. Hopefully in the services phase we will be buying seats, and that sort of imbues all of our planning going forward. So NASA, we even envision that the launch director authority will reside with the commercial provider. Now NASA will have a go, no-go veto for our contracted services. So if there's some issue that crops up and we feel like there's a safety issue, we would be able to pull our astronauts from that mission. If the providers then wanted to continue to go forward with that mission, that would be up to them. So we would still be in a position of authority for our astronauts' safety, which is key. And again, while the commercial provider is going to be responsible for these activities, NASA will still be applying our full insight and oversight approach, and again, at the end of the day, verifying that these systems are safe to meet our requirements and to fly our personnel. Okay, I saved the best for last also. There might be a delay. Here we go. Notional timeline, and if I could have made this word notional in red blinking lights, I would have done that. This is very much notional, but it does have it incorporates the ideas that we put forward. At the very top, you can see the COTS and CRS milestones above. The white are the COTS milestones. We have 3 demonstration flights for SpaceX, 1 for orbital, and then the CRS services purchases in red going out till 2015. And then in the next sort of row down, we have these commercial crew enabling initiatives, starting with the CC-DEV Space Act agreements that we awarded earlier this year. Most of those are going to be wrapped up by the end of this year. Also feeding into that is another initiative that we use with the stimulus money, were these dual-use infrastructure items, where we're augmenting some ground and launch infrastructure with that money that could potentially be used by commercial providers as well as NASA. And then, as I mentioned, the IRD and SRD, we hope to get a draft of those documents out by the end of this summer. That's that first white tick mark, and hopefully baseline those before the end of the calendar year. With the Commercial Human Rating Plan, or CHIRP, we've got the first draft. It's out on the street now. If possible, we'd like to turn that around one more time and send that out again at the end of the summer with the SRD and IRD. I'm not committing to that because I'm not quite sure. If we get a gazillion inputs, we might not be able to turn it around that fast. But we would like give industry another crack at that human rating requirements plan because it is so critical. And then this is the key development and demonstration phase right here. We realize that this is a very aggressive schedule. It assumes that NASA receives approval to move forward this calendar year. Now, it does show one phase for development and demonstration. That does not mean it'll be one agreement or one relationship. We could break this up into a design phase and a development phase. Again, we like Space Act agreements for this, or potentially some other innovative fixed price arrangements. We're not envisioning cost plus contracts for this middle phase or this development and demonstration phase. We may even have combinations of vehicles and mechanisms with the Space Act and maybe an additional sister contract. We are going to be refining that strategy going forward, but this is the way we've let it out so far. We hope to have awards if we get approval to proceed with this program by Congress. We'd like to have awards sometime in the middle to the later part of the fiscal year, leading to having multiple providers throughout this period. And we've received industry input prior, and also the Augustine Committee also received input over the last summer, that indicated that the commercial crew providers are very aggressive and believe that they can provide this in about a 3 to 5 year window or time frame. So you can see I've got 3 years in the red and then sort of a dotted line for an additional 2 years, maybe stretching out to 5 years. So that represents the 3 to 5 years of input that we received preliminarily. Now, we're not going to know until we actually get proposals from private industry how long this is going to take and how fast we can move forward. And then the services phase. That's the last row here at the bottom. We do envision this to be firm fixed price, probably FAR Part 12 contract relationships. The exact timing for when we are going to pull the trigger on the services phase cannot be predicted at this time. It's going to depend on the progress and the maturity of the commercial providers during the development and demonstration phase, as well as the needs of the ISS program. You don't want to do it too early, because then the commercial providers can't price with any kind of fidelity what their services phase prices are going to be. And you don't want to do it too late, because the ISS program has real needs for crew transportation. So we're going to be assessing that as we go forward on an ongoing basis, and when we feel like the providers are mature enough and the time is right, we'll pull the trigger for the services phase, hopefully leading to missions in the fiscal year 2015-2016 timeframe. Okay, I got 5 more minutes, so if I stretch it out long enough, I can avoid questions. Not that I'm avoiding questions. I want questions, of course. So in summary, the Commercial Crew Initiative, designed to meet the needs of the ISS program for commercial crew transportation and enable the growth of this commercial human spaceflight industry for use by NASA and other customers. While this does, and I cannot stress this enough, this is a big change for NASA and the U.S. aerospace industry. So this is a big deal, and we're working through this, but we didn't start from scratch. We used and leveraged a lot of the lessons learned, a lot of the experience of NASA over the years. Again, we've been talking about doing this for decades. So now we're actually doing it and being able to apply those lessons learned going forward. And if successful, we feel that there are significant benefits. This could really transform human spaceflight for future generations. It results in safe, reliable, this is number 6, and cost-effective crew transportation for ISS. It's, again, going to free NASA to do the Beyond LEO exploration mission, reduce our reliance on foreign systems, and hopefully lower the cost of access to space, and enhance the industrial base, act as the catalyst for future programs. A lot of cool things that we believe are benefits to this program. So in terms of a personal note, a lot of people are asking me what this program's like, and for me, starting out right now, it's a lot like parenthood. When I first started having kids, a lot of my friends were asking me, well, what is it like to be a parent, Phil? And my response was, it is both more challenging and more rewarding than I ever thought it was going to be. And I believe the same could be said about this program. It's going to be more challenging and more rewarding than we can even envision today, and we already know it's going to be hard and rewarding. But that's what I'm looking forward to. That's why I'm excited about this program, and hope that we can move forward expeditiously. Still got a little bit of time. So I will throw it up to questions, but this will not be your only opportunity for questions. We're going to have the Q&A session here, and obviously my door is open at headquarters as well as Ed Mango down at KSC. And again, a lot of touch points with industry. Okay, a lot of touch points with industry to get your input, and we very much want that. So that's it. Oh, thank you.
Actually, I have so many questions that I don't know where to begin, but...
One per person.
I'm assuming that the list of the three design documents, or the documents that people have to meet in order to have NASA-sponsored astronauts fly on these vehicles, I assume that those only apply to NASA-sponsored astronauts. If a commercial company wants to fly somebody else, how do they do that? Is it the FAA? Where's the FAA on all this? And what about indemnification?
Yes, well, those are all good questions. I must have missed that on my slide. I did have the FAA on there. But we do envision that eventually that the FAA will be licensing these launches. We haven't laid out specifically when the FAA is going to be involved or in the scope of their timing. That's still some forward work, but we've already engaged in a very good dialogue with the FAA. We've got a great relationship from the COTS Cargo program with the FAA. We feel like that's been a very, very successful partnership, and we'd like to take that forward. Especially since this is supposed to be commercial crew transportation or commercial human spaceflight. So the FAA is very much going to be involved, and the exact timing and nature of the FAA involvement is still forward work associated with us. But to confirm the first part of your question, absolutely. Those 3 documents will certify commercial vehicles for NASA personnel to fly to the International Space Station. If they're going to go to another destination, even another NASA destination, say they're going to go to another place in LEO, suppose we send humans to like the Hubble again potentially, or some other servicing thing, that will require a different certification. The loads are going to be different. I mean, you've got the human rating requirements, and those deal with the requirement for the system, but also where it's going is important to know so that you can factor both of those things in for the certification. So, of course, if they're going to a non-NASA location, for example, a Bigelow Aerospace module or some other location, that will require some other form of certification. And we'll have to work out those details, whether we've got to work out those details.
One more question back here. Phil?
I think I can have one more question. 47 seconds.
Okay. Dave Huntsman. I work commercial space initiatives at NASA headquarters. First, a quick comment, Bill. The White House budget language in February made it clear that NASA was to operate in a way from now on that did all the things you're talking about, setting up sustainable commercial industries as we do NASA's other business in the process. And based on solely on the thumbnails we've heard today, got to congratulate you and your team. I think your team is the only one who actually addressed that part of the White House direction fully, based on what they've said. My question was also FAA related, so I'll get it a little bit more specific. Will you be able to at least try to merge the FAA process and request for documentation, insight, et cetera, with NASA's as much as possible so that there isn't a lot of double bookkeeping for 2 totally different agencies these guys have to do?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And I can say that we haven't worked out all those details, but that goal and that issue is foremost and on the minds of the study team when we put this together. We said whatever relationship that we do develop with the FAA, we have to ensure that we do not duplicate our requests for information, that I don't know if merge is the right word, but we have to make sure that they are integrated in a way so that the commercial providers are not confused and that we have a very clean framework for how to do this. We want to make sure, again, it goes back to helping us help them. If they have other customers and they're successful in getting other customers, that's good for NASA. So the framework that we develop has got to enable those. We want a seamless process. We don't want 2 different processes, if possible, one for a mission with NASA personnel and another mission that may not have NASA personnel. So we would like that to be as integrated as possible. Good question, and thanks for the compliment. Out of time. Thanks.